So I want to talk a little bit about connection and love in relationships. Okay, so connection and love in relationships are fragile, and if they're not like poured into, they're not like maintained, or specific actions aren't done on a weekly or daily basis, or even a monthly basis, sometimes to like rebuild that feeling that you have for your partner, that feeling can go away. And most times, whenever you think about that connection, that way that you feel about that person and that in your relationship, you think that maybe, and this could be one of those relationships where you've known the person for a while, you guys have been together for a while, and you've already built up this rapport with each other where you believe that you know specifically a lot about that person. But you have to remember that over time, over days, over weeks, over months, over years, people change. People's perception change about specific things. People's maybe thought pattern changes about specific things. And if you're not an inquisitive or constantly being inquisitive about those changes and asking questions and just having an open dialogue with your partner on either a daily or weekly basis, then you'll miss it. Like you'll miss those changes, you'll miss those things that person is actually kind of going through. And this is especially if that person does not like volunteer certain information to you. So that means that if you happen to be with a partner that maybe does not always share their emotional side, or they don't always share specific components of their day with you, then if you don't ask the question or ask a specific question, you'll never know. So that's kind of why connection and then also love, it has to be maintained, right? Like there has to be specific actions done, again, on a daily or weekly basis, so that two people can actually stay connected with each other for the long term. Because most times whenever you get into a relationship, depending on the type of relationship and or marriage, most people, or the majority of people, want that to be a long-term thing. And in order for something to be a long-term thing, it has to be like consistently worked on, consistently like cultivated in a way where two people can continue to grow together. And specifically, the way that you can actually do that is by prioritizing time, like quality time. And that's different from just spending time together. Because most times you have those couples that they spend a good chunk of time together, but it's not relationship building time. Like they just basically around each other. And technically, that's not moving you as a relationship forward if you're not doing anything specific with that time to get to know each other and to continue to build that rapport and build that connection with each other. So in quality time, you are actually being intentional and deliberate about like asking those questions, getting to the root of how a person is feeling, what they may be going through, what they may be planning for their future, what they may be planning for the relationship future. Like that kind of stuff, like those kind of questions need to be asked. They need to be kind of talked about between the two people. And technically, those in-depth questions, you may not have to ask them every day or something like that, but at least on a weekly basis, like once a week, twice a week, just check in on a deeper level. And that's not necessarily saying that you wouldn't check in every day, obviously, with your partner. But on a deeper level, doing a deep dive at least twice a week or more, depending on your type of relationship, definitely helps the other person build that certain level of understanding with each other. Because that's the other component about connection in relationships is understanding. Because sometimes there are misunderstandings in relationships. And a lot of times there are misunderstandings in relationships is because the two people inside the relationship don't make enough time to understand where the other person is coming from. You don't prioritize that time to actually listen, like actively listen to what the other person is actually saying so that you can build that understanding with that person. Because when you're inside of the relationship, it's an intimate type thing. It's a personal type thing. There's a lot of emotions involved. There's a lot of feelings involved. And with all these emotions and feelings that are involved in a particular relationship, then that level of understanding has to be a lot better, right? Like there has to be like time where both parties can actually sit down and actually just truly just hear the other person out, right? And most time, what I would suggest is like a download time in your day, right? Like a time where both parties can just kind of download like their day, their feelings, their thoughts in a day. And most times it can be in the morning, it can be in the afternoon. Typically, for most people, it's at night where they just kind of can come together and just kind of download their day. This is the kind of precursor to that, though, is that if you're laying in bed, it may or may not work if you're like laying in bed, right? Because sometimes whenever you're winding down from your day, you're sleepy, you may be tired, your mental focus may not always be there, and it may not always be beneficial, right? To just kind of do that when you're that relaxed at the end of the night, because you're really not giving your partner that undivided type of attention. Like you're not really tuning in to what they're actually saying to you at that moment, because your body's winding down, right? Like you're just trying to like go to sleep at that point, right? So finding time within your day where you're a little bit more energetic, a little bit more focused to actually listen and understand or try to understand where the other person's coming from is going to be your best bet for your relationship, right? So when it comes to the love part, right? The love part of a relationship, because I know I was talking a little bit about connection, but when we talk about love, though, love has to be, again, cultivated just as much as a connection in a relationship has to kind of be worked on and cultivated, because love is one of those things that, okay, again, you can fall in love with a person, you have that love feeling, but that love feeling, that those butterflies and stuff like that, they're short term. It's a short term feeling, right? And in order for that feeling to grow or again, blossom, right? Specific actions have to continue to be done in order for two people to continue to feel that way, right? And those actions have to be intentional. They have to be deliberate. They have to be in the way that the other person likes to receive love. Okay. So everyone likes to receive love differently. Okay. Like it could be an acts of service thing. It could be a words of affirmation thing. It could be gift giving. If a person likes gifts, it can be physical touch. It can be a whole bunch of different ways the person likes to, well, it can be a few ways that person likes to receive love. But you have to make sure that you're giving that person that love in the way that they want to receive it and not the way that you think that they should receive it. Okay, because that's two different things, right? Because a lot of times we try to give a person and show a person love in the way that we like to receive it, but that may not be what they want, right? So that's another reason for having those types of conversations with your partner about how do you like to receive love, right? Like what are the things that make you feel cared about and loved? And asking that specific question so that you can kind of get that feedback to make sure that you're on track with providing that person that form of love, so that they constantly and always feel cared about, loved, and that way that love that they feel for you, it grows. It has that opportunity to grow, right? And most times, again, that principle called the five love languages. There's books out there about that. So if you want to dig more into that, definitely dig more into that. Great book by Dr. Gary Chapman. Great book. He has a great book out about that. But the biggest component to that, especially when it comes to like love and relationships, is it has to grow, right? Like it has to, especially for the longevity of any relationship, as well as your connection for that person in your relationship. Those two things have to be constantly worked on, right? And just as a simple metaphor, right? Like everyone, for those, like I said, if you drive, you have a car, you have to take it obviously for maintenance, right? Like you have to get oil change, all these things, tire rotator, stuff like that, in order for your vehicle to run, obviously, successfully, right? So your relationship is the same way. Like you have to do specific actions on a weekly, monthly, daily basis in order for your relationship to function appropriately, and make sure that the metaphorical engine continues to run and move the relationship forward. And again, life happens, situations happen, kids, family, all these particular things, they happen to you, and then also your relationship, which does not make it any easier for you to continue to work on these things. But that's not an excuse, right? And most times when life happens to us all, right? And you don't want the fact that in life, when life happens, it's an uncontrollable thing. Sometimes, most times it just happens. But you do want to try to focus on the things that you can personally control, or you personally can control. And the things that you can personally control is looking at your schedule, like looking at like your individual schedule and carving out 45 minutes, maybe an hour to actually be intentional about the other person. Like be very like deliberate with that person and giving them that time. And that's something that everyone can do if you so choose to. And that definitely helps, build that connection, build that foundation for that long-term successful relationship. So remember these key points, especially when we talk about like connection, when we talk about love and relationships, is that these foundational pieces, they have to be maintained. Like they have to grow. They have to have specific actions done, again, daily, weekly basis, in order for that relationship, that understanding, that connection, that feeling of love to grow. Okay. So hopefully these key points, some of the points that I talked about, like kind of help you guys as far as like building that connection, building that love, feeling, so that your relationship can continue to grow and be successful. Are you getting married? Do you know someone that is? Are you wondering if you and your partner are ready to take that next step in your life, in your relationship? Do you want to strengthen the foundation of your relationship moving into marriage? If you do, Day One, the premarital program is here to help you. So if you want to kind of learn those tips, those tools, those strategies to prepare yourself for that next chapter in your life and your relationship, then give Day One, the premarital program, a try. So within this program, you are going to get those tips, those tools, those strategies. You're also going to get that guidance to help you prepare as much as possible for that next chapter. The thing about preparing for that next chapter is that there's no way to be 100% ready for for the next step in your life, but you do want to be as prepared as possible before you get there. So that's where the day one premarital program comes into play. So if you're ready to prepare and start really growing towards that next chapter in your life, in your relationship, give day one the premarital program a try. Click the link below and get started today. That's the day one premarital program, and let's get started today.